And now, we have the final keynote. We left the best for the end, did we? Join us for a paradigm-shifting keynote by Vladan, Joler, director of the Share Foundation, as he unravels new extractivism. Vladan's keynote will explore the far-reaching effects of digital extractivism in today's world, examining everything from DNA to human emotions and nature. He will discuss how modern supply chains and digital infrastructure mirror historical colonial practices affecting global wealth and power distribution. Vladan.
Poštovanje. Okay, wow, there is still people here. I'm really impressed. Okay, just a second. Yeah. So, you that stayed here, do you want like a light version of this, or you want like really hardcore version of this story? Hardcore. Okay, but it will go into, yeah, media theory, philosophy, and this kind of, is it art? Good? Okay. Okay, but let me do some kind of, yeah, just a second, some kind of intro. So basically what you are going to hear now, it's maybe a bit different than what you were like listening for the last, how many days? 2-3 days, no? So this one, it's about other side, no? So it's not about like being inside of the process and being inside of the company and trying to, you know, like create something. This story, it's coming from the outside, from the someone who is outside of the black box, trying to look inside, no? And for me, and people that I work with, the black box is basically what people usually on these conferences are developing. No? So we are trying to do some kind of reverse engineering of the different forms of technological, let's say, processes, planetary scale factories, planetary scale computational systems. And so this map, and basically at the end, all of those stories are ending up in some kind of big black maps, as this one. So the name of this one, it's Anatomy of an AI System, and it's done in 2018. I think we started this research maybe in 2015, 16, when there was not a lot about AI, and the thing that we were like investigating was like one single device, and it's called Amazon Alexa. And so we started to think like, but this story is starting basically maybe even 10 years before that, not 10 years, maybe like 6-7 years before that, when we basically within the Share Foundation, we were like doing a lot of cases of attacks on investigative journalists, websites of independent media, and things like this. And then by doing that, I realized that what we were doing, because a friend of mine, Andrei Petrovsky, he's like a cyber forensic. So we were like investigating data, you know, like of those cases of attacks. And I realized that basically together with him and a few other people, I have a power to do something that I always wanted to do before basically this. You know, I fall in love with network graphs. Like I saw the first one in early 2000, and it was basically some kind of early images of the internet. No? And basically what we did there, then we did two things. We first followed the life of just one single internet packet from our home to facebook.com, and did some kind of investigation of like all of those infrastructures in between. But then we started this kind of mass pinging or trace routing of all the IP addresses in Serbia, and started to create these kind of maps that looks like this. So this one is, I think, Orion Telecom or something like this. And basically, step by step, I was trying together with the friends and people who were like helping me to do that, somehow to try to understand how far from the position of the user, not from the position of someone who want to, build something, but someone who is, the one on oppressed, basically, outside of this story. So how far I can go with that? How far I can deep dive into the infrastructures, how far I can deep dive into those kind of layers of untransparency. So we started with tracing of internet service providers, and then going deeper and deeper into the infrastructure, then investigating, in this case, because this map is about Amazon Alexa, investigating the data centers, and then where are the location of the data centers, how they look like, what kind of machines they have there, and how many of them they have. So it's some kind of detective job in order to try to understand from the position of user how this real anatomy of those devices looks like. Because back then we were investigating Amazon Echo device, and this thing that we have in hand, of course, all this is nothing. This is just like some kind of interface, no? But the real body of this planetary scale system is somewhere else. No? So, and then after that one, after this first story, we were investigating this thing, basically. And that was, I think, 2016 or something like this. So we tried to do some kind of mapping of Facebook, and we called it Inside Facebook Algorithmic Factory, this investigation. So we tried to find a way how to understand how this factory look like, how to do some kind of reverse engineering of all of those algorithms, or to try basically to understand what's going on. Because if we think, all of those companies, they earn a lot of money and stuff like this, so they are some kind of factories, no? So we try to scrape the interface, we try to do a lot of different types of reverse engineering, but at the end, what we managed to do is to find I think at that time it was 8,000 different patents that basically explain some of those algorithms. And then based on these patents and different kinds of investigation of cookies, of I don't know what, whatever we were able to do, we created this drawing. And this is still, even this is published now like 6-7 years ago. This is almost one of the rare public drawings of one algorithmic system, And again, I'm coming from another side. We are coming from the position of the one who is not, so this is not my company, and then I'm showing the map of how this is work. This is basically detective job, investigative job in trying to understand how the other side look like. But not from the position of, I want to do that in order to sell more ads on the same platform, or to do this kind of search engine optimization, but from the political point of view, from the social point of view, from a philosophical point of view, in which we believe that within those places, within those systems, there is something wrong. And not wrong in the sense of they are not working well, but in a way, idea that if we apply those systems, if we apply those algorithms, they are basically doing some kind of harm to society. In a sense, we believe that within those algorithmic processes, there is some kind of some kind of crime, not crime, but some kind of let's say, structural inequality, exploitation of labor, new forms of extraction of whatever we can think of. And then to go back to anatomy of an AI system, so basically all of those years, 5, 6, 7 years, we were trying to find a way how to understand just this one line from the user to basically data center, where is this data center, how it looks like, and then to deep dive into some kind of let's say, algorithmic process and try to understand what kind of algorithms are there and so on. But then, in a way, the thing is you can go even further. No, this is just one, let's say, the backbone of this process. No? So if you go further than that, you can ask question, what is behind now this model? No? So there is some kind of training process, and this training process is running on some hardware. This hardware is, I don't know, produced, I don't know where. But then you can also ask yourself, what is behind the data set? What is the labor, hidden labor that is hidden in this process? And then you can also ask yourself from which kind of books or materials those data is coming from, who produced those books. Those books are basically how did they deal with the copyright issue and all of those shady thing that we are now speaking about when we are speaking about ChatGPT and how to understand what is the data set of ChatGPT and how to, all of those interesting things that are going on. But this was 2018. No? From then, things are started to be more complicated. And for example, for several years, I was working as a part of one investigation group at the NYU when we tried to basically find out how to investigate data sets. So if we have a data set from somebody else, how to investigate, and now we are facing a problem of millions and millions of images. No? So even we have some kind of ethical, I don't know, idea how this should be done, and I'm also going to question that. It's also the question of how I'm dealing with something that have millions or billions images or texts. And even if I find a way how to do it, what kind of question I'm asking this data set in order to say this data set is ethically correct. No? So in that sense, this is some kind of one very deep layer of different forms of investigations, and those maps that you are seeing, they belong to some kind of let's say, something that is called counter cartography. Because cartography, it's usually coming from the position of power. No? This is my country. This is my empire. This is my, I don't know, company, and this is how this company looks like. Or this is my, I don't know, process or Gantt chart. But counter cartography is coming from another position, so it's completely different. As I said, it's coming from the position of the outsider, coming from the position of the one who is trying to investigate and maybe critically analyze the black box. No? So our position here, political position, basically, it's because obviously it doesn't work in this kind of transparency. It didn't work also with algorithms. It didn't work. We had a few years ago, there was really, on some kind of European level, okay, this idea of algorithmic transparency, it didn't went well. Even we have, I don't know, many laws, it didn't went so well. Now with the AI, it's going even worse, no? But just ask yourself, even you are on the other side of developing those things, is it okay for us as a society to be able to see those things inside and how they're working and on which data they're based and so on and so on. And you can see this also with the ChatGPT, that I think the 3.5 version there was in the white paper, it was written I don't know, names of the data sets they used. In the later version, you don't have that anymore. So, and I think it's really healthy, even I know that it's so hard from the people who are developing this to follow up with all of this idea of ethical AI or whatever. I think for the society, it's super important that we know how the different kinds of machines that are doing automatized decisions, how they're working and on which data they're made. But this is just one part of the story, no? Because, and this is some kind of shift that happened in the moment when I started to work with some other artists and basically this idea of geology of media. And I know that it sounds really strange, but geology of media, it's idea of if we have, I don't know, if we follow this idea of Marshall McLuhan, how media are extension of our senses, geology of media, it's trying to understand now all of these infrastructures from the point of Earth. And then this investigation basically started with the minerals and elements, and then we basically grinded all the parts of different devices and tried to do some kind of investigation how they are made, and try to follow then the story of creation of those devices. And in order to do that, we kind of used to use those triangles that we took from Marx, basically relation between resource, labor, and product, and basically followed how those now minerals are transforming and becoming all of those infrastructures that we were like investigating. In that sense, if you think in time, all of those like devices in time were different kinds of rocks, no? Like 40, 50 years ago. And now somehow those rocks are transformed into those infrastructures and devices. No? And it was like super interesting and fun to do that completely different, because like for years I was just investigating some kind of data processes, but here we are speaking about factories, we are speaking about mines, we are speaking about many different things that we don't relate so much when we speak about AI, no? And then we went deeper and deeper and tried to understand for each of those processes what are different kinds of environmental and working hazards, but also how much people earn by doing all of those jobs. So if you start from Congo, where, for example, some, I don't know, minerals are being digged, or any other places in the world, you will see that it's starting with the $3 per day, and then on the top of this pyramid is some dude called, I don't know, in this case, Jeff Bezos, who is earning maybe sometimes 100 million, maybe sometimes billion, who knows, no? So this, and if you think in relation with this like process of creation, then you see that this extraction basically is based on inequality, no? Inequality of labor, and then you are starting to see the shapes of, you know, like something that we saw maybe a few hundred years ago as well, like with European colonialism and so on, so on. So we basically, there is not much different, even in the flow of minerals and labor, than a few hundred years ago. And then why this map became relevant, in a sense, in that kind of circles of media, critical media theory, social studies became some kind of example that when we are speaking about like relation, usually the relation that we are like discussing, a relation between humans, us, and the technology, society and technology, and how this technology is influencing society, tra-la-la. But if you start to think from the position of including Earth in this like process, then the story becomes completely different, because you ask yourself, okay, do we really need this, and so on, so on. And when you go deeper into some processes, you understand, you know, like, I don't know, like that all of those like cargo ships are running on really, really bad fuels and polluting like 50,000 cars and so on, so on. But you know all of those stories. So this is this kind of like a view on this planetary scale factory that is like really wide. And this is something that became like really interesting to me, to think about all of those things in this planetary scale, because they are planetary scale systems. There is no device that is not planetary scale produced. And that's interesting thing to think that we depend on a planetary scale factory in order for all of those our fancy things that we do or whatever we think of. We rely on those supply chains. And then we did, for example, some investigation, I think that was like last year, on NVIDIA A100 chip. Basically, we did some kind of analysis of supply chain, and we found some kind of obscure supply chain website and did some kind of mass scraping of the company. So basically what we did is it's a NVIDIA, and then all the suppliers, and then suppliers of suppliers and suppliers of suppliers. So we did some kind of 4 layers of suppliers. And we got like a data table that have 2 million lines of different entities who are participating in this. Maybe some of them are repeating, but basically it's tens and tens of thousands of companies who are part of the supply chain. And so this is the scale of the planetary scale production. No? It's not one company, it's not this, it's a basically planetary scale process. And what is different to 2018 when we did this, it was basically different situation. Somehow this planetary scale flow was functioning. And now what we are seeing, it's basically some kind of like, it became a war zone. Not in a sense like, it was political, basically became political war zone. In a sense that many parts of different governments, companies started to fight around different parts of the supply chain. No? So this is this kind of large scale investigation or thinking about this extended anatomies of those systems. Because like, for example, even this map is complex. Each of those dots, for example, that we have here, can be also like some kind of like go into another direction, another dimension. So for example, here we can stop to follow the internet packets and go into the, I don't know, electricity, no? And then you see other planetary scale system of like electricity production and so on and so on. So you can basically investigate many different dimensions of those planetary scale systems. And somehow to conclude this one, it's not just one planetary scale system, it's several planetary scale systems that are functioning together. So it's a planetary scale factory of production, it's a planetary scale communication system, internet, and so on, planetary scale computation system, because all of those computations are also happening in the different parts of the world. So, in that sense, there is something strange with the voice, no? With the sound, no? Everything is the same. Cool, okay. So, that was anatomy of an AI system, but in all of those investigations, and I did many different investigations, so this one of like algorithmic processes, different of, I don't know, some kind of like information warfare, topographies, and so on, and somehow those maps became some kind of, not some kind of art objects, they became an art objects, and now they're in some world's biggest museums of, I don't know, like Museum of Modern Art in New York, V&A, and others. But the role of art and philosophy for me became like more and more important in this process, because I understood our technical and legal investigations, they have a limit. No? There is just limit. And even when you get the image, however this image looks like, the main question, political question is the reason. It's a why. It's not how, but also why, and basically meaning of, and trying to understand what kind of power and what kind of new political relations exist with this new situation that I was seeing through this map. So I started to use more and more art and philosophy to think about those maps. And the film that you're going to see now, that I'm going to step, this is going, yeah, I will play this and stop and maybe try to explain. It's a bit abstract, but I hope you will enjoy. And it's really also dense, but I will stop and try to basically explain each of those metaphors, each of those like philosophical concepts and ideas that are basically embedded in this. And this video is basically the same thing. It explains the same thing as the other maps, but this is this kind of, let's say, philosophical critical media theory layer on top of it.
New extractivism. An assemblage of concepts and allegories. The word assemblage is usually understood as a collection or gathering of things or people, a machine or object made of pieces fitted together, or a work of art made by grouping together found or unrelated objects. This map and accompanying footnotes are precisely that. One big messy assemblage of different concepts and ideas, assembled into one semi-coherent picture, or let us say a map, a worldview. 1. Gravity. Like Einstein's theory of relativity, massive objects curve the space and time of the topography of the internet, proportionally to their weight, defined by the number of their users and content. So we can think of massive monopolies and conglomerates such as Google and Facebook as enormous black holes that, with their gravity, create a field so intense that it attracts and swallows the content and users.
So basically the first metaphor that you saw, let me go. Is basically this idea of let's say the space. So and this is something that I was saying in other investigation when we were doing investigation of browsing histories, because you can really see of other people. You can really see this kind of like a huge gravities around certain places such as Google, Facebook, and others. No, and then if we start to think like a bit more creatively about that, to start to think about the internet as a space, no? Then those gravities are basically creating some kind of holes, and then we can think about like, you know, Einstein's theory of relativity, and try to have fun by thinking how those different companies are basically bending time and space, no? Oh, there is no sound. Something happened with the sound.
And social forces contribute to that gravitation. 1. Gravity.
Sorry.
Productivity. Other potential vectors.
Okay.
2. Forces. Many other potential vectors and social forces contribute to that gravitational force. The fear of social isolation, economic and professional insecurity, unrealistic expectations of efficiency and productivity in the adapt or die environment, tailored addictions, depression and anxieties. These are just some of the other vectors that constitute social forces that keep us, with or without our wish, attached to those platforms. The social cost of opting out has become so high that opting out is essentially a fantasy. 3. Black holes. Our imaginary hero is swimming against one of those platforms' gravitational force. As they glide towards the singularity defined by the mass of these giants, users and content pass beyond the event horizon, the imaginary boundary in time and space, beyond which there is no return to the outer part of this universe. The event horizon defines the line after which the social and economic price of leaving those platforms is becoming too high. No matter how fast they try to swim now, the stream will pull them towards the center of the black hole.
So the one before, I was thinking how to define, because it's not just about number of the users, of course, there is many other forces that are involved. And if you think what can be the gravity of those spaces, no? So basically addictions and those like, you know, apps and platforms are made to us to be addicted. There is so many different factors that are basically shaping this gravity. And then it's interesting, this kind of point of no return in that relation. It's basically the moment in which the social price is becoming too high. No? That you can say, okay, you're not forced to use this, but somehow, what is the price of not participating in that? What is the price of not having an email? No? What is the price of not having a LinkedIn account? What is the price of not participating in that? And the price, it's pretty big. And if you remember the story when I don't know, the Hillary Clinton emails, WikiLeaks, and then drama about her emails, and then somebody asked, but what about Bill Clinton? And they said Bill Clinton doesn't have an email. So that's this position of power, you know. what is the ultimate power? It's basically not to have an email, not to be forced in a way to use all of these because you don't need it. But most of us cannot pay the social price of opting out of any of those systems. And this price basically is defining this gravity.
Without even noticing, this story's actor is now falling towards the hole into a new allegory, the cave. 4. Allegory of the cave. What takes place at the bottom of this metaphorical black hole can be described through Plato's allegory of the cave. Plato describes a group of people who spend their entire life chained to cave walls looking at a blank wall. These people are watching the shadows of real objects projected on this wall, giving them names and meanings.
So in original Plato allegory, you have a people on the back of this cave, and then they're doing some kind of like with the puppet, some kind of show, no? So the question here, who is a director of this continuous show that we are seeing, algorithmic, basically. The director, it's some kind of algorithmic process, because like what we are seeing on our, just think about like your feed on Facebook or whatever as a constant projection on the wall of your cave, no?
Story, the script and directing of this performance of shadows are entrusted to human algorithmic machines that regulate, filter, censor and moderate the projected content on the walls of the cave. The existing elements and contents that exist outside this cave and horizon of events create an information flow, a theater of shadows. 5. Walls. The cave and tower walls are constructed of multiple opaque layers and built mostly by ghost work or invisible labor. The bricks of this structure are made of black boxes, closed code and hardware, glued together with the invisible network infrastructure. They are covered with layers of corporate secrets, patents and copyrights. 6. The interface. Interfaces are framing and structuring the projected algorithmic spectacle of images. Even though they are a direct manifestation of rules, regulations and taxonomies, they successfully obscure what is hidden beneath them. They define directly or indirectly what we can or cannot do. They are both tools and discursive frames. They are instituted as an order of discourse and embodiment of the discipline power of the platform.
So where is the discipline power there? Interface is the, defining the rule of the game in a sense of, I don't know, Facebook, or no, X, or however it's the name of that now. The rule of the game, hearts, shares, no? This is the rule of the game. This is what we are competing in, to have more of this and more of that, no? So in a way, and you can also just produce something that is defined by the interface, defined by the size of the letters, or like number of letters that you can have or not, or whatever. Even without all of this algorithmic moderation and everything, the interface itself is a regulatory framework in which you exist and in which you compete. No? So this is some kind of first layer of control, or however we call this.
This cave is not only a prison cell, but it carries out the function of a factory hall and a resource extraction apparatus. The prisoner performs their threefold function as a worker, a resource and a product.
And this is the key problem that I'm seeing, is basically we are not capable of understanding new labor relation that exist in this space. So are we there as a product? Are we there as a labor, or we are a resource? And in a way, what is interesting, and even in anatomy of an AI system, I was thinking through that triangle. But basically this triangle is kind of collapsing, because we are all the three things in the same time most of the time. And it's really hard to define, to feel and to understand how factory look like, how this new labor relation look like.
7. Shadows and capture agents. The spectacle of a constant flow of information projected through the interface creates a digital shadow on the opposite wall of the cave. The projected digital shadow on the wall is a resource field where thousands of capture agents, tentacles of the rhizomatic surveillance complex, extract information. Every movement or emotional reaction is being recorded continuously. These capture agents can take many forms and sizes. From the tiny pieces of code, crawlers that wander the web, over the sensors catching heartbeats and surveillance cameras capturing our faces, to the complex network of satellites orbiting Earth. They can see our shadows through a full range of the electromagnetic spectrum. They can be invisible or massive like a 500 meters wide radio telescope. The process of quantification is reaching into the human affective, cognitive and physical worlds. Every segment of our existence reflected on our digital shadows can be seen as a form of direct or indirect labor producing data as a behavioral surplus. When we breathe, walk, or sleep, every single emotion that we feel, our attention, our body temperature, or diseases that we have, everything can produce a behavioral surplus if being captured by surveillance apparatus. In that sense, even our bare existence within the walls of the cave can be seen as labor.
So the question is, we have all of this fancy, emotion economy, attention economy, economy. Every few days, months, you have a new economy. But it's really healthy to think, what is the resource in that economy? So if it's attention economy, what is the resource? What is the labor? What is the product? So the product, it's your attention. The labor, it's your, whatever you do. And the resource, it's your body. And this is super interesting. This is like, so when you put this into that perspective, it brings you somehow to this dimension of, Matrix movie about like batteries and stuff like this. But it is really healthy to think all the time like through that prism of that triangle. Resource, labor, product.
Prisoner workers need to spend more and more hours maintaining their profiles in a similar fashion to sex workers in the windows of red light districts. Digital identity labor is the forced labor of the 21st century. This creates an auto-disciplinary society where each anomaly and misbehavior is detected and quantified. 8. Platopticon. The gravity of these techno-giants hold billions of users, workers, products at the bottom of those caves. In this assemblage of allegories, millions of caves or prison cells form the unique and invisible panopticon structure. The central tower of this structure has two main functions: 1, to project the content on the walls of the caves, and 2, to surveil and capture the digital shadows of the prisoners reflected on the opposite wall. 9. Information retrieval. From each cell cave and through the core of the panopticon tower, streams of information are flowing into one of the central structures of this image, the data bank. The data bank is not just the engine room, but the power itself. From here, we are examining three processes crucial for this story. On one side, extracted, stored and analyzed personal data is shaping the multidimensional portrait of the individual. On the second, all the products of the user's labor are being stored, analyzed and ranked, to form the information spectacle of images, meanings, and reputations. Furthermore, in the third one, this structure lies upon the top of the exploitation of human minds, bodies and nature. 10. Creation of data body. Our online behavior is captured, processed, and deconstructed into statistical vectors, clusters, patterns, and anomalies. Each move we make is carefully analyzed by thousands of mathematical functions, algorithms, and machine learning systems. This system does not see us through linear narratives emerging from our browsing behavior, metadata, or movements in physical space, but as n-dimensional statistical projections. Each and every one of our clicks sharpens the resolution and complexity of this abstract and constantly changing statistical portrait or data body. 11. Individuals. These multidimensional data portraits of the individual, consisting of millions of data points in hundreds of dimensions, can be seen as what Deleuze will name dividual. A physically embodied human subject that is endlessly divisible and reducible to data representations via the modern technologies of control. The critical art ensemble is describing this data body as the fascist sibling of the virtual body, a much more highly developed virtual form, and one that exists in complete service to the corporate and police state. 12. Condividuals? Dividual is always open to interaction, always ready to be detached from, and attached to, other dividuals that share some properties with it, creating collective agents as condividuals, or supersubjects. The mountains and valleys of multidimensional ever-changing invisible algorithmic landscapes are clustering individual dividuals and creating new relations, taxonomies, and ontologies. 13. Surveillant assemblage. The full picture of our individual being is not centralized in one place but is spread across hundreds of data centers in the rhizomatic assemblage of the surveillance economy and government actors. This non-heterogeneous and dispersed assemblage portrait exists through the system of data dealers, the official and unofficial exchange of data, in constant flow forming one functional entity. 14. Content extraction.
Okay, because I'm kind of running out of time, I will need to skip several chapters, but you can go try to find this video online or something like this. So let me go here.
In the transition to the information age, capitalism was given a chance to satisfy its affinity for infinity, to form and conquer an infinite number of new territories, to create new mechanisms for the accumulation of capital within these new spaces and to formulate new forms of exploitation. Once the territory is invaded, the process of enclosure and exploitation is established. New forms of extractivism are expanding into the territories far behind the biodiversity and knowledge enclosure. This is why we are not speaking anymore just about the knowledge economy but about the attention economy, emotion economy, and many other new economies being born from the invasion of new territories of extraction. 19. Fractal supply chains. Supply chains hidden behind the engines of extractivism are black boxes as much as neural networks or algorithms hidden behind interfaces. Each triangle of this fractal represents one phase in the production process, from birth in a geological process, through life as a consumer product, and ultimately to death in an electronics dump. Within the fractal supply chain, we see a perpetual dance between human labor, non-human labor, earth labor, and automatization. 20. Blood, sweat, and toxic lakes. Every click or swipe we make online creates one little hole in the ground, filled with toxic waste and covered by toxic clouds. Every movement of materials and data within the planetary scale factory has its own hidden price. Supply chains are optimized towards maximizing profit for a few, while the real costs of the destruction that follows are shared among all the living entities on the planet in the present and the future. One molecule after another is extracted by labor and technique to make things for humans, but the waste products don't return so that the cycle can renew itself. 21. Triangular trade. Slavery was at the heart of the development of the modern planetary scale global economy. From those days, the same model of constant flow within the vast fractal production chains expanded in time, space, and complexity. The transatlantic slave trade evolved into the contemporary planetary scale factory. 22. Chains of digital colonialism. Traditional colonial practices of control over critical assets, trade routes, natural resources and exploitation of human labor are still deeply embedded in the contemporary supply chains, logistics and assembly lines of digital content, products and infrastructure. In that sense, chains of digital colonialism are made both on the extraction of digital surplus and the traditional exploitation of labor and resources.
So, and I think this is like maybe the crucial question. So many different authors define this kind of new relation. And so you have Shoshana Zuboff using the term surveillance capitalism, or Varoufakis using this really interesting term that I really like, that he's calling digital feudalism, in which he's saying that basically he's speaking a lot about this kind of like cloud giants, no? And how we basically are in some kind of feudal relation with them, how we basically work, because the key point for feudal relation, it's that the worker, it's like, you know, attached to the ground. In a sense, it belongs to the ground, not to himself. And he is also explaining how in this new relation, we are basically in all of those clouds platform doing something there, creating our own stories, creating whatever. We are basically in this new feudal relation. We can think about this new feudal relation also in the context of, you know, ChatGPT, OpenAI, because, like, you know, the chances that any of us are going to build our own one, it's really small, but the chances that most of us in the world will live on that land in that kind of like feudal relation to them. So, but this is I think the crucial political, philosophical and social problem. It's how to relate, how to define this new relation, to define our relation with those platforms, those technologies, and to try somehow to, because without defining those relations, we will never be able to change something, to organize, or whatever. No?
The concepts presented are mostly represented here visually, in the form of allegories. Dictionaries define allegory as a story, poem, or picture that can be interpreted to reveal a hidden meaning, typically a moral or political one. All of these allegories and concepts together, joined in the form of an assemblage, create together a blueprint of a machine-like superstructure, or a super-allegory. In that sense, what we have here is an almost fractal allegorical structure, an allegory, within an allegory, within an allegory.
Okay, you survived. Congratulations. And you probably didn't expect this kind of like cyber Marxism for the end of this event, but here we are. The conclusion, my conclusion is like, it's really, really, because we live in this kind of like techno-solutionism in which like technology is going to save everything, and AI is going to do this. And this kind of obsession with technological solutions are basically degraded social and philosophical solutions. And most of the things in our living on Earth cannot be solved by technology by itself. And this is what we are living now and seeing now in all of those. If you see how your reality is basically breaking down, how the truth is breaking down, how the social relations are breaking down, is basically because we do not have a social and political answers to this new technological paradigm. Okay, is there any questions? Yeah. Ooh, there are some. There was one there, one there. Yeah.
Hello. Thank you very much for this lecture. It was very interesting for me. But I would like to raise a question, because this is, I would say, some kind of negative philosophy remark. And I'm interested, is there a solution? I mean, because oftentimes when I hear about the philosophy which is criticizing something, oftentimes I am lacking a solution. And I was just asking, do you see some kind of solution for this problem?
So this is the question that I'm getting on most of my lectures always at the end, and this is something that I was not able to kind of deal with in a sense of trying to find answer. The problem, it's like, we do have a different roles, no? I think my role is basically to try to investigate, it's to try to find the language, it's to try to map, it's to try to visualize different kinds of social and political relations, different kinds of data flows or whatever. And I'm leaving for others to find an answer according to that. The same question that you ask is a part of this constant solutionism that basically try to find the answers in a let's say some kind of simple. Most of the time, the question I'm getting: can I get solution on a one page with the 10 commandments? And it doesn't work in a way like this. So because the problems, this is something that I was working in other maps. The problems are much deeper. If we go 500 years ago or 300 years ago, we will see the same patterns of extraction, exploitation, inequality, and different kinds of relations. So this is not a design problem or technological problem. In order to solve this problem, we need to solve the problem of inequality. We need to solve some kind of really deep problems. No? So there is no easy solution for this. And the other problem, we still don't, we are so far away from even possibility to investigate those places and those systems that we don't know what is the problem inside and how this problem look like, how this algorithm is going to influence, our lives or something like this. So I don't do solutions.
Yeah, I understand. If I may ask one more thing. So, what do you see like because this is more like a state of things. You're telling more in this lecture. We are stating the things, but I'm not sure if we can point at some problem. What is the source of the problem? Is there some concrete answer, or maybe it's a human nature?
Yeah. So basically, in these other maps that I was showing, like anatomy of an AI, Facebook algorithm, I can maybe say that like transparency of technological system is a big problem. I can say that exploitation of labor, hidden human labor, inequalities within this planetary scale, fractal chain, those are some kind of key issues that if you ask me what I will like to be, change, it's probably this. But the core, I think within all of those things, the core value is the problem. The core value is that the name of the game, it's to collect more likes, more shares, more money, more whatever, and not like, playing in some kind of harmony with society, harmony with nature. So the core game is maybe wrong.
Another question here.
Hello everyone, so I'm Anita Jovic. First of all, thank you for one of the most extraordinary talks I heard recently. I want to ask, is it possible at any point of time to own your own shadow? Is it more like a technological question? Is it possible with Web3 solutions, something like that? But I think it's more of philosophical, like, not philosophical, but as you said, it still comes back to technological solutions rather than what you just explained. But is it possible to own your own shadow, data shadow?
I think that to own your own shadow would be great, but in a sense of this is like a political economic solution. In a sense, okay, if we own our own data, then we will be able to trade better or with this data, or to use or give or not give rights to others to give. But as long the data is a new gold, it's a half solution, but in a way it is one of the possible solutions that we can look into. No?
Thank you.
Okay. Next.
Okay, thank you, Vladan, for a wonderful presentation here at the end of the lecture. I enjoyed this very much. So my question would be, I think we're all aware of, in these times, we are even more estranged, even more divided, and these, in my opinion, are one of the most, the biggest problems with technology these days. So in your opinion, what can we as individuals, firstly, find a solution? Would it be with our friends or family? Should we find a solution in books? How can we find ourselves in these difficult times?
But I don't know, I don't have some kind of general solution. I can maybe tell you what was like helpful for me is basically I think the speed is important aspect of it. Maybe several things. One is speed, pace of events, pace of what is expected from you, you know, and somehow to try to slower the pace, because I think this is really healthy for your body, for your mind and everything. And the problem, it's the speed, it's accelerating. So we did some kind of deep research on a time as a system of control, in which, I don't know, a few hundred years ago, you had a bell in the city and that was it. And everyone was synchronizing to one bell and it was like maybe 1 hour. But now you have, like, during 1 hour, you have hundreds and maybe thousands of different kinds of time signals and notifications. And the span of what is, you know, how much time you can unanswer those notifications, email, it's shortening. So to fight for the time, I think it's a crucial one. Another interesting point of view that I saw in a work of one philosopher called Han, he's speaking about that we don't live anymore in this kind of like Foucauldian society of like control through the military, schools or whatever, but basically the control itself is this kind of like, you have all the freedom in the world, and basically the problem of you not being successful, it's you. So basically the capitalism went on this kind of nano level of individual, in which you are basically individual as a project, individual as a company, in which we are all running and competing amongst each other. And this is the base of something that is called like reputation economy, you know, whatever. So being aware of that, of this like jungle, neoliberal, anarcho-capitalist jungle in which each of us is running through the jungle and fighting each other in order to collect more something, that's a part of the problem. No? So to work on that, to work on like how to understand this, how to understand reality that we live in.
We have 2 more questions. One is here back.
Well, my question was basically answered, so yeah, we can skip that.
Here.
Thank you for this lecture. As electrical engineer in this field of artificial intelligence, I feel some guilt of so many things, but how about not only dystopian, but utopian things? What do you think and all about universal basic income? It is evidence that extreme rise of productivity, and actually why to push people to work 8 hours or 10 hours per day? Exactly. What do you think about universal basic income? It means 20% of average salary of some country, for example in Serbia, to give all people, employed, non-employed, etc. This is kind of leftist, but in the same time to solve some of problems who artificial intelligence is going to do. Thank you.
No, but for sure, like distribution of wealth, it's one of the core problems. Like because like what we are going to see in next few years is basically the even bigger acceleration of the gap between the ones who have money or own the tools of production, basically the same company as we saw before. So it's going just to be higher and higher, and I think raising the level up of people, but it doesn't mean that it will kill inequality, and then you will have like another problem in inequality. But that's not the. I think that's one of the. It's interesting solution, but the other problem, it's maybe more accurate because maybe we can deal with the income inequality, but the problem, it's like destruction of the what we are going to see in the next few years. Probably it's some kind of hyper grow of information, basically synthetic information that is being created by synthetic music, synthetic news, synthetic content, whatever, that's going to flood our information sphere. And we already live in a society in which like we are completely lost what is truth, what is not truth. We live in some kind of simulacrum of political simulacrum or corporate simulacrum in which our emotions are misused and used either for political causes or for like to buy something, no? And with this like automation of information production or content production, we are going to have even bigger mess. And then you can think again, like who will be in the position then to choose what is truth, what is not truth. And on that scale, you again need to do it automatization of that. So that means that we'll be again the same company who will build the tools to basically moderate their own tools for production. So we have some kind of, if we think again in this kind of political sense, we are now in the situation of First World War and machine gun. So in the same way how the industrialization of warfare changed the war, we have that now in the information space. We have a machine gun and tanks for production of fake news, of like whatever you can think of. So I think we can solve the economic question is like important, but basically the question of psychological warfare that is happening to us in information sphere, this is maybe more accurate, more something that we need to deal with now.
Okay. If that's it, thank you, Vladan.
Nice end of the...
Yeah, many people came in the end. So this is the certificate which we are going to thank you for being a lecturer at DSC.
Yay.
Thank you.